All right, welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop Podcast, y'all. As you see, we're two-manning gaming it right now. Christian is at work, but that's all right. We're still here, talk about ball. With that being said, little preface before we start this episode. As we are filming this, yeah, you can see right behind Reuben, the 76ers just lost in devastating and just devastating
Yeah,
fashion to
yeah.
the Eastern Conference finalist with the Miami Heat. Who knows? Maybe one of them will win those new Eastern Conference Finals awards. That being said, though, Reuben, bro, how you doing?
Man, I'm all right. Got some candy in my mouth. Just chilling. Just finished some work. Just finished watching the Philadelphia 76ers get their asses handed to. Very happy about that. Very happy for my boy Kyle Lowry. But it's a good Thursday afternoon. I got a day off tomorrow. I'm going to Cologne tomorrow, so I'm solid, bro.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, Kyle is a-okay and ready to go for the conference finals.
100%. I
That
sure
being,
hope so, man. Like they'll need him, regardless of who they're
oh,
playing in.
100%.
They won't get past. They won't get past the Eastern Conference Finals without him. So.
No doubt. I will say, though, we'll definitely talk about it later, but I think just the Miami depth is insane. But we can save that for later on in the episode. You guys
Yeah.
know how we start off every episode is our takes of the day. Ruben, do you have one you want to share first, or do you want to let me ride this out? How you
I'll let
feel?
you go first. I'll let you go
Okay,
first.
this is technically a little old based on oh my gosh, I didn't realize James Harden only shot 2 shots in the second half. All right, that being said, Rudy Gobert is the most overrated defender in the last decade. I know, this is a guy who's won what is it, 3 Defensive Player of the Years, multiple All Defensive Teams. That's all. That's all fine and dandy. But the man literally thinks he would lock Shaq's ass up when Dikembe Mutombo tried and failed. I will say, the only person I think has probably been effective was Hakeem. But even then, that was a young Shaq. When Shaq was in his prime, there is literally no one who could guard the man. The only thing that could guard that man was the perimeter because of his lack of that game. But that being said, Rudy Gobert, is he a good defender? Sure. Has he been played off the floor because of his lack of defense on the perimeter? 100%. We saw see last year. Terrence Mann put up a 40 piece. That's a dude who's a second round pick. That's a guy you expect to be, solid rotational, but not somebody to drop a 40 piece. And just the fact that Rudy Gobert was, for the most part, the primary defender on that and how they were able to exploit that. This is a guy that's supposed to anchor your defense, and he's the guy that's getting shot off the floor. Come on now, is that really Defensive Player of the Year material? And we even saw this last series with the Dallas Mavericks. Same shit happened when the Mavericks were really able to spread the offense and really able to kill them from the perimeter. Rudy Gobert's fucking useless. You know, Rudy Gobert. Don't get me wrong. At this point in time, I would not be surprised if he gets into Hall of Fame. That being said, we've seen with the NBA 75 list where a lot of those guys are in the Hall of Fame, but a lot of them fucking stink as well. Their guys are shooting jumpers like this, stuff like that. Rudy Gobert is a guy that, we'll see what happens this next coming season. But as somebody who has a tendency to even miss, wide open layups, despite the fact of him being 7'1", and the fact that he can get played off the floor just based off the fact of how important the perimeter is in today's game, I just think that, when all is said, Rudy Gobert, bit overrated as a defender. Especially when you consider the fact that, paint defense is all great and all, but again, with just how important the perimeter is and how guys like Steph had made that shot to basically be like an essential to prospects heading into today's game. I think just with how many shots are getting up from the perimeter and the fact that Rudy Gobert can't really guard you there, I don't know. A little overrated in my opinion.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think he's good for the time period of basketball that was being played, right? Where he came in, and a lot of it was like if you had a big center that could guard the paint, that was a really valuable thing. And we've seen kind of the evolution in the last, I want to say, 3 years maybe. Because I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, you've still needed a really good big man to win. But with the way that the game is played, where like 80% of the teams, like I want to say 20 to 25 of the teams in the league right now who don't have one of those top center guys, they are going small, right? So you can exploit those guys who can't really stay in front of players in the perimeter. And the thing about Rudy Gobert as well is, I think it's also a hindrance to him. Like we say, he's an overrated defensive player, but it's also because of the fact that he has such a spotlight on that part of the floor because that's his specialty, because he can't do anything else offensively. So you get troubled seeing a defensive player of the year have troubles on the when it comes to defensive rotations. Like often he doesn't know where to be when he's trying to when he's the guy who has to close out the shooters, or when he has to shadow players coming off the screen and roll. Most of the time he just sits back because obviously he doesn't have the lateral quicks to keep up with players when they turn that corner. So it's like a thing where you watch Rudy Gobert and yeah, if you have really good defensive perimeter players, what he does for your backline is like if they do get beat, right? Oftentimes he'll be able to protect that side of the floor, and then the other defensive players can, the phrase that they have is help the helper, right? So when Rudy Gobert is crashing into your guy, and he's protecting the paint, and then the other perimeter defender who got beat can rotate out. More often, you have a really good defensive system. So I think Rudy Gobert over the past couple of years has also been like a beneficiary of a good defensive system, like over the past couple of years with Utah, and
No
they've been one of
doubt.
the top defensive teams in the league, right? They've had really good defensive players. Obviously, Royce O'Neal and Joe Ingles, two of their top perimeter defenders, were injured this year. Mike Conley's washed, and Donovan Mitchell's not a very good defensive player. So what happens? The defense falls apart, and Rudy Gobert gets left on an island, and then you start to exploit the weaknesses that he has. So it's like, for me, I don't know so much. I would say like he's an overrated defender. I think he's the best at what he's capable of doing defensively. But when the system around him isn't very good, then it's so easy to exploit a player like that. And for
Mm.
me, over the years, it's kind of like now I start to look differently at the Defensive Player of the Year award. It's like, really, how really are we, what's the criteria for this? Is it the guy with the top blocks, or are we really thinking about a player who impacts your defensive system? Like, I think Marcus Smart, Bam Adebayo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they do so much for their teams, like on the defensive end, and they're if they are the one of the biggest, if not the biggest factor for why they have so much success on that end of the floor, because of their ability to switch multiple positions. They can help. They cause a lot of fouls, a lot of offensive fouls. Like guys like Marcus Smart, who's really good at taking charges. Who I believe is the league leader in charges this year. Not the league leader, but he's one of the top guys.
Mm.
And then there's a guy like Giannis who can switch out. Bam, same thing. They can body guys inside. They can go and guard the perimeter. So, yeah, the last year with Rudy Gobert has also made me really look at like, is he really defensive player of the year material in this day and age?
Definitely not.
Maybe.
Definitely not.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, that was a long-winded response to say, yeah, I pretty much agree with you.
100%. Shaq was Banco 21-0.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. That's a pretty hot take, dude. I don't know what was in his right mind to say that he could lock down Shaq. Like, I don't know. I don't think there's a big man in the history of the league that we've ever seen. I don't think can guard
A prime
Shaq.
Shaq, definitely. Yeah. I will say though, you're supposed to think like that when you're an NBA player, but reality often doesn't align with delusion, and I think this is one of those instances where that sentiment rings true.
Yeah, for
That being
sure.
said, Rudy Gobert's one of them is definitely going to go. I think it'll probably be Donovan, just based off the fact that he has more value. But Rudy, enjoy your few years of mediocrity that you have left in your career in Utah.
Yeah, well, I actually would like I would like to see him find some success in another scenario. Like I just
No
he needs to,
doubt.
he needs a point guard that can work the screen and roll with him. That's
And
really good.
actually pass it.
Yeah, and actually passing the ball. Like he's one of the top finishers at the rim. Like wouldn't you want to just throw him the ball in that situation? But
Mm,
I mean, it is what it is.
yeah, I think with both of them, though, just a quick little tangent. I think both of them, their trade value is definitely plummeted from what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Especially with this past series. That being said, I still think Donovan Mitchell's definitely the one that gets moved, just because I think, you know, $200+ million for a 30-year-old big man is not as salivating as a 26-year-old guard who still has potential to really, you know, bust
Yeah.
out and still be one of those top guys. But yeah, no. That being said, Reuben, what's your take, brother?
Man, honestly, it's hard to have a take right now because we're in the middle of the playoffs. There's not a whole lot of news. But if there's one take that I had in my back pocket where it's like it's a slow day for me, I don't really have anything like really hot. I think Zach LaVine is going to go to the Portland Trail Blazers this summer. I think he's going to Portland this summer, and now everything has to work. Everything has to align for Portland for them to afford. Obviously signing Zach LaVine to a max contract, which they will have to. But Zach has been non-committal when it's like any conversation about Chicago. He's always been like, um, I mean, I guess I can't paraphrase exactly, but it's been non-committal. Like he hasn't said like, oh yeah, the Bulls are the front runners to re-sign me this summer. Like most often, free agents will say yes, of course. Like I would love to come back. I would love to be back. I would love to do this. I can't wait to have those conversations. Blah 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 blah. And sorry if you guys hear the train in my background. Um, he's been non-committal on that part. Obviously, they went out pretty bad during the season, during these playoffs. Um, Zach LaVine's from Seattle, which is like literally so close. Like, what is it? 3 hours away from Portland?
Probably give or take, yeah.
Yeah, give or take, right? I mean, we've both driven down to Seattle and Portland and whatnot, so it's like right there. Portland's one of the teams that could afford him. They have to clear space still because they have to. I believe on the books they still have Bledsoe, Josh Hart, Yusuf Nurkic. So they got to figure out those contracts. I mean, ideally those would be guys that you could keep if you're gonna sign like a guy like Zach LaVine and get back into that create some sort of competitive roster. And I think like if you were to keep those guys and then you added a Zach LaVine, it's possible. Or you can do sign and trade. I mean, there's so many cap gymnastics that have to happen for them to really afford Zach LaVine. They can't sign him outright, that's for sure. So, I mean, that kind of puts a blunder in my take overall. But I think if let's say we just moved everything out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, and I was a guy who could tell the future. I would be like, yeah, I think Zach LaVine wants to go to Portland this summer. Is it possible? Is all the cap stuff gonna happen? I mean, it could. I mean, the dude's 27 years old. Excuse me. He's an NBA All Star. Him paired again with Dame. Now people might say, well, it might be the same thing as it were with McCollum. I think Zach LaVine is a better player than McCollum, at least in their primes. Personally, Zach LaVine is also, I think, a slightly better fit because he's a guy that can play off the ball, right? He's a guy that can spot up and shoot threes, come off screens. DJ did that a lot, but he's also a very ball dominant player. But Zach also likes to cut to the rim. He likes I almost said the wrong phrase. I almost said rim play, and that's definitely wrong. He likes to attack the rim. He likes to play. He likes to be around the rim. Like you can throw it out to him, and I think that off ball threat for Dame is important. Um, so I mean, systemically, you're looking at a team. You're looking at like just personal like history and all that stuff, and just what happened with Chicago and how non-committal he's been about it. I would be like, dude, I would put all my eggs in the basket right now to think Zach LaVine would go to Portland.
I don't know, man. I feel like I could see it happening, but at the same time, I think as shitty as Chicago went out this year, I think, as everybody would say, I think a lot of their ineffectiveness and a lot of their shortcomings came off the fact that they were injured a lot of the time. I mean, Lonzo Ball, I don't think he's played since like early in the new year. There's that super long stretch where Alex Caruso was out after the Grayson Allen thing. You had multiple people out with COVID. Even Zach LaVine himself was a little like banged up towards the end of the year. So I feel like as much as I think that Zach LaVine has the opportunity to go elsewhere. I also feel that with him being 27, it's not so much that he can afford to like take another flyer and wait for a team to rebuild. Whereas I think as it stands right now, Chicago's healthy. I think they're definitely maybe not in contention, but they're definitely knocking at the door, especially if they get their chemistry right. And with that and Zach LaVine, I think is severely underpaid. I think he's getting paid around 20 million, and we see nowadays that's almost like role player money. Like it feels like Duncan Robinson gets paid more almost, but no, I definitely think the Bulls are going to throw him the Supermax. I think without a doubt that's the only way he stays. Although the concerning thing I will say is I think he's been reported he's willing to take a pay cut if it means like they're going to win. With that in mind though, I don't think Portland is a team where he might do that. I think if he were to move, a team I'd love to see him on would potentially be whatchamacallit. I think would be a Detroit. Because I think, Cade Cunningham being in like tandem with Zach LaVine, that seems like a super nasty like group. And then Cade Cunningham with another season under his belt is gonna really take that next step. That's in like honestly in like Jaw or Zion mode, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen how much he was able to do with what was it like 50-ish games compared to like his slow start. I think him coming into this next year being fully healthy, Cade Cunningham's going to take that next step. With that being said, though, I still believe that the Chicago Bulls, in these past few years, where it's been really tough for their fans, you had arguably one of the worst coaches, Jim Boylan. You had a lot of like miscues and a lot of things that haven't gone your way since Derrick Rose like got injured. I think Zach LaVine's kind of been that, that best guard that's been in there since Derrick Rose and even before that, Michael Jordan. And I just think that when you look at what they're building and what the potential of the team is, especially if healthy, I don't think there's a team that he could go to where the prospects would be greener. With that being said, I think he does sign the Supermax. I think the only reason he would get traded, or only place he would get traded to, even the Detroit thing seems like a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's definitely got to be a team that is more on the road to a championship than Chicago is right now, and I think that's something that's kind of difficult to find.
Yeah,
But
well, I said the Portland one makes sense to me in a sense if it was a sign and trade.
I think that's the only way he gets moved. I don't think anybody's gonna sign him naturally to the 4x120. He's definitely gonna get his money.
Well, if they do the four, if they, I think what, I believe the max extension, the max contract he can sign, I'm just reading it now, is 157 million outside of Chicago. So
Oh,
he could sign a 4-year, $157 million deal, which is like roughly what 40 million, I want to say, or 30 something, just under. Is that right?
give or take.
So he could get, if a sign and trade were possible to Portland, that's where you have Josh Hart, Eric Bledsoe fall into that category within that sign and trade, a Yusuf Nurkic potentially. And the reason why I think that makes sense is because what did we see Chicago struggle with so much last season, or like this past year, is perimeter defense and a lot of shot creation or the ability to get second possessions and stuff like that, right? They didn't have Patrick Williams. They didn't have Lonzo Ball, really good guys who are really good at that. Obviously, Pat Williams came back, but he's not playing at 100%. You bring a guy like Yusuf Nurkic, who is a slight defensive upgrade to, I don't know, like a Vooch, obviously. Bledsoe and Hart are very good defensive players. I mean, you do lose that star in Zach LaVine, and then you put all your chips in the basket with a guy like DeMar. But I mean, if it were to happen, I mean, if at the end of the day the cards are on Zach LaVine's table, and if he decided to say, "Hey, I want to go to Portland," Chicago's got to make it work some way or somehow. So I
No
think
doubt.
that's so. I don't know. I don't know. I just for Zach LaVine's whole situation with me because I just feel like there's so much parity in the league and it's so hard now. Like there's not a single team that can afford him outright right now unless he goes to like what Oklahoma City. We all know he's not going there. So that's what I'm saying. I'm like, damn. I thinking about the parity in the league and all of that, he can't just jump ship and join the Bucks, right? Or he can't just jump ship
I'm
and
not
join.
gonna lie, I wouldn't want him.
You
I,
wouldn't want him.
not. I just think the way the Bucks are assembled right now, I think is.
Yeah, I don't
I
think.
wouldn't be willing to part with Chris Middleton because I think he's such a low maintenance player that plays alongside Giannis perfectly. And I think Drew Holiday is too valuable on the defensive end. And those are really the only two guys that you'd consider giving up or that you'd have to throw in that trade. And I don't know, in my opinion, at least.
Well, I wouldn't give it up either because I find Middleton also to be really like he just fits what Milwaukee does so well with.
100%.
So like you think about that's what I'm saying. Like you think about all these different teams. Like Zach LaVine doesn't fill it in Golden State because he's not a rangy switchy guy on the defensive end. He's a pure scorer.
Yeah. I think there aren't a lot of teams, in my opinion, that really need like a primary bucket getter. But that's what Zach LaVine is. I think there's, with exception to maybe like New York, the Knicks, I think
But
for the.
if I'm thinking the top four in each conference, there's one team in my head right now.
Who? Throw it.
Dallas. Dallas. Because Brunson could
Yeah,
walk away.
that's true.
Brunson could walk away.
That would be. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. Oh man, as much as Dallas needs a solid center, I think that would be a crazy backcourt. Oh
Yeah.
man, I'd want to see that more than Dame, to be
That's what I'm
honest.
saying. I'm like, dude, there's one team that I think out of the top four out of this year could potentially be like, okay, I think we got an upgrade in our team, and that's Dallas. Because I mean, they play so heavy guard, right? And they found some success with it. And it's not like I mean, the only thing is Brunson is actually a really good defender, which is what provides them with a lot of diversity on both ends. But I don't know. I don't know. Just like we're watching them right now, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's Dallas.
there's so much that could happen in like the next like few months. I mean, no, Bradley Beal's gonna sign the Supermax, but that's a potential that he might not be in Washington. I hope he's not, because I want to see him play some meaningful ball.
One last thing. Here's also the reason why I don't think Zach LaVine is going to really. Well, he's not a game changing player. You're not. You're like people aren't following airplanes for him like Kawhi Leonard or Giannis or people aren't clearing cap space 2 years ahead of time like the Toronto Raptors did. Like to try and sign him. Like Zach LaVine is a really good third, second option. That if a team can pick him up and feel like they can be competitive, then I think that's the movie make. I just don't know if he's that type of free agent that
Mm,
you go all in the books for though. He's not a top 15 player.
I, I agree, but I don't think he's so far away that you still wouldn't necessarily bring out the Brinks truck. I definitely think he's not someone you're flying across the country for.
You will drop the Breeze checks for him,
Yeah, but
sure.
you'll throw as much money as you want, as you can
Yeah,
for him. Uh,
yeah, no, I agree.
that being said, Zach LaVine, man, welcome to the New York Knicks.
I'm dead.
I
Oh, what
think, huh?
what about him and Donovan both go to New York?
No fucking way. That would be disgusting. Who's gonna guard? Neither of them.
Mitchell Robinson.
Mitchell Robinson, with all 15 minutes he's gonna play before he fouls out.
Yeah, they better fire Thibodeau, bro. He sucks.
Thibodeau needs to get fired.
Oh man.
Speaking of being fired, I think that's the perfect segue to talk about this first series. As we mentioned earlier, the Philadelphia 76ers just completely choked Game 6. A year removed from choking not only this Game 7, but a couple years removed from arguably, not even arguably, undoubtedly the biggest shot, I think, in Toronto Raptors history. With
One of the biggest shots in NBA playoff history. I mean,
mm,
no one
I
no one had ever hit a buzzer beater in Game 7 before. So
that and definitely the most anxious shot, because I mean that shit bounced like it felt like 20 times.
man, watching that live was crazy, bro. But
I remember watching that. That was crazy.
yeah, just
No, but we got the Philadelphia 76ers and the Miami Heat. I mean, first off, I think, you know, Miami was definitely dominant, but I don't think it was in the sense that, well, obviously they were the better team. What am I trying to say here? I think it's that, whether you agree or not, the Philadelphia 76ers were like a wounded animal in that series. Obviously, you know, Joel Embiid suffered the orbital fracture and the fractured like thumb on his like shooting hand, and I think that kind of demoralized them. In that, as we said earlier, for a lot of this, they were just kind of playing for pride at this point. That being said, I think Joel's ability to even come on the floor, despite all that injury, is just his presence. You know,
Yeah.
in the in the past games before Joel came back, this is gonna sound really stupid, but the Sixers were playing like a team that didn't have their best player, and that there wasn't really anyone that was, picking up the slack. Not that you're gonna fully pick up the slack for a guy like Joel Embiid, but to be even more of a homer, we saw last year with the Bucks in the conference finals where Giannis goes down, and what do you have? Chris Middleton with a 40 piece, Brooke drops 30. You had guys that really stepped up, whereas on the Sixers, it was kind of more like we're just trying to survive until we get back. But then you see Joel Embiid come back, and now they got a little life to him. James Harden starts to feel himself a little bit, gets a little back to the vintage stuff. But overall, I just think that this was a series that was kind of destined for Philadelphia to lose, and we saw that ring true. It's going to be interesting for them this coming off season, I will say. But yeah, Reuben, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there because it's like number one, Miami had a number of injuries too throughout the series, but what held them up was their awesome depth. Like they're literally a 10 deep team. They could go as far as 12 if they want to. It's a really deep basketball team, hence being the number one seed all season long despite the injuries they faced. And then obviously taking out the Philadelphia 76ers in 6 games. Number two, most of the time when your best player goes out, your team, if you're a contender, should be able to pick up the slack by committee. You brought up a really good example last year with Milwaukee, but we're even seeing it with Memphis this year, right?
Oh,
We're seeing it
100%. Yeah.
in the last game. They just, oh my god, they whooped
They
that
bombed
trick, bro.
him.
Yo, they whooped that trick. They literally did without their best player, and they've done it all season long. I think their record is something insane without
I think it's
Jaw.
20-5.
Yeah, just that's insane. I mean, it reminds me of when Toronto. If we go backwards and we're both on our biased ish right now. 2019, the team, I think believe the Raptors were something like what was it? They were something ridiculous also without Kawhi. It was something like 13-2 or something like that. I can't remember what games like.
And even the year after, their record was pretty close to that Kawhi year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's like without your best player, a contending team should be able to pick things up by committee. And they didn't do that. Number one, because their second best player is washed. Like James Harden is just not James Harden anymore. We saw it in both
It's a
series. We
sad
saw it.
thing. Man, what really did it for me, sorry to cut you off, but it was
Yeah, yeah,
that possession in the fourth. I don't remember how much time there was, but you know what I'm talking about? Where he was about to try his tween, all that
yeah,
shit, and
yeah,
then he just got absolutely mobbed.
yeah. He just doesn't have it anymore. And then who's your next best player in the series? Your second year player, Tyrese Maxey.
I think Tyrese Maxey was the best player in this series, low key, for the Sixers.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like
that's
it's
that's
like
not
if
what you
that
want.
guy, that yeah, like, and that's the problem. Like that. Okay, that's fine with a young team like Toronto, where Scotty Barnes was like the second best player on the floor at nights, and it's like okay, that's cool because this team also has an average age of like 25 years old. If Thaddeus Young wasn't on the roster, it's like the same thing. But if you look at a team like Philadelphia, when all their chips are on the floor, they've got a veteran coach, they're trying to win this season. It's disappointing, right? It's disappointing. I will say, like the injuries obviously hampered them. Like Joel having that torn ligament in his thumb is. I kind of knew it when he got that. I was like, yeah, I don't think this team's gonna win a championship this year. So they can't put all of the chips on James Harden's shoulder as bad as he was. I mean, he was playing. He's been playing hurt too. I mean, since he got traded from Brooklyn. So I mean, he's gonna get a lot of the pressure. He's gonna get a lot of the hate, anyways. But And it's so easy just to hate on a guy like James Harden. Um, but I think that all the blame shouldn't go to him. I think blame should be put on the fact that the team's not deep. They decided to make that trade. They gave up all their depth to try and get James Harden first of all, and then their team was injured. So it's not like it. What can you do, right? It's just one of those unfortunate things. Um, yeah, I don't know where they go from here. It's difficult for me to pinpoint what the Sixers' direction is because it looks like, I mean, right now, if you look at their cap, you look at their salary, the money, the stuff, players they can afford this upcoming offseason, they don't have a lot of young players other than Tyrese Maxey. So if you're focusing on internal growth, you better hope Tyrese Maxey takes a huge step forward next year. Otherwise, you're kind of being in the same place. And all you have to do at that point is just hope you're healthy. But we all know that health is a fickle thing in the NBA nowadays. And, like, you will not go throughout an NBA season not getting hurt at least once. You just better hope that you don't get injured during the playoffs or something.
No, 100%. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think their eggs are obviously all in this one basket. Uh, I think if there was to kind of a little bit of a consolation thing, you saw in this series, I think a guy like Paul Reed was really able to show he has potential to be a part of that rotation. He played solid minutes here and there, but obviously you can see he's still very much like most other second round picks where they're very raw. So I think next year, we'll see what happens. I think he's a guy that can really help improve that team. Another guy, Jayden Springer, he was taken at the same spot as Tyrese Maxey, I believe, but obviously with this past year's draft, obviously I don't think he's going to take the incredible jump that Maxey took in his sophomore year, but just I think the main thing this team is missing in their second unit is just another guy who can handle the ball. Jayden Springer could potentially be that guy. You never know, but we'll see. I think, yeah, obviously their cap's kind of fucked, and it's definitely more hedged on the fact that you're hoping these homegrown guys really take that next step. Furkan Korkmaz is going to average 20 next year. Georges Niang's going to shoot 50% from the three in a perfect world.
Next year. Imagine. Yeah, and I'm going to make $1 million next year, bro.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, quick question though, Reuben. What do you think they got? Obviously, I think it's consensus that Doc Rivers has coached his last game on the Sixers side. But what do you think you do with a guy like Tobias Harris? Do you think, you still let it ride out considering he's such a highly played player and at some points was very steady as a player? Or do you think you try to shop him around even though I don't know if you really get much back?
I think you try to shop him, dude. I think it's time in Philly is done. I mean, they wanted to put a lot of blame on Ben Simmons last year. Tobias has not really been good in the playoffs, like just historically. And if he's your third option, supposedly, right? He's supposed to be your third option. I mean, if you look at this team now and how to kind of progress throughout the season, he's your fourth option. But he's not a guy you can rely on. He's not a guy you can rely on. So I think they shop him around. I don't think they'll get very much because obviously his contract is due to cakes. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do with Tobias, to be honest. I mean, if I were the GM at this moment, fresh off of that loss, I'm looking at the roster. My number one thought is, okay, what are we doing with Tobias and James? Because James has also proven to be unreliable the last 2.5 seasons. Tobias hasn't been good. So those two guys, like on the top of my head, are my biggest concerns on this roster. Because I mean, you gave up all your chips for James Harden, and that's what he gave you. And it doesn't look like he's gonna get any better unless he like all of a sudden comes into this season, next season, super in shape. Because I think that's the only thing that'll save him this year. And then Tobias, I think, just in terms of the way that this roster is progressing and like how he's historically not been productive, I think you got to look elsewhere for some help, man. I think, yeah, you just need a better supporting cast. I don't think Tobias cuts it.
Yeah, I think supporting cast is the perfect word. I don't think it should be if he, not if, when he does get moved, because I think he's definitely, yeah, I think you're right in that he's done with the Sixers. I would prefer them to get like multiple solid pieces rather than trying to go for another big contract guy. I think a big person I would have in mind is Buddy Hield. We saw how their offense was very stagnant at times. I think a guy like Buddy Hield would really help to boost that, and especially not only with his 3-point shooting, but I think players really have to respect Buddy Hield's 3-point shooting so much that allows him, I think, to get driving chances. So I think guys like, rather than trying to go again for a 1-for-1, I would try to get a 1-for-2. Two solid, two solid rotational guys rather than kind of going for starter, in my opinion, at least. But yeah, shoot. The process seems to have been stifled and may continue to be stifled based on this summer, but we'll see how that happens. So, the next one, let's talk about the game that's going on right now, Mavs versus Suns. In my opinion, I think outside of maybe Al Horford on the Celtics, I think the player that's upped his stock the most in the second round is probably Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, I think he's looking like the MVP right now, value-wise, because you look at, 4 years for $50 million? That's a crazy steal for a guy who does what ideally you want every top-level wing to do, shoot threes and defend well, and he's done all that. I mean, 40% from the line throughout this series, 8 threes in Game 4, which I think was one shy of a record I think that the Jet has. And Dorian, it sucks to say, but Dorian Finney-Smith has really been Luka's number 2. I mean, throughout this entire series, Jalen Brunson hasn't looked the same. He's been very shaky. What else is there? I think Luka's obviously been the absolute maestro, but man,
the bank is going low for Brunson right now.
It has gone from we're not taking no pay cuts to shit. Actually, what you got? With that being said, though, Luka is just such an amazing player so far, and the fact that he's only 23 and in his 3rd or 4th season is disgusting. This dude hasn't even reached his prime yet. With that being said, this is kind of another hot take. I don't think it's crazy to put him top 5 Europeans ever. In my opinion, my list right now would be Giannis at the top, Dirk number 2, just based off the fact that he lost in his MVP season to a number 8 seed, him being number 1. Number 3, I put is Pau Gasol. Number 4, Tony Parker. And number 5, I think it's a toss-up between Jokic and Luka. I think obviously Jokic has the resume, but I think just how Luka's really hit the ground running, especially from his rookie year to even now, where he's undoubtedly an all-star, undoubtedly an all-NBA player. He's made it to that level where you already pencil him in from day one to be on that all-star team, in my opinion. But yeah, I think, man, Luka's just fucking amazing. That's all I gotta say.
Is Luka a top 5 player already?
Are you talking European or whole NBA?
I think both. Why couldn't he be?
True, very true.
I mean, the top 3 is very clear. Giannis number 1, Jokic number 2, Embiid number 3.
I think if Luka he's 5 though, because I don't know.
That 4 could be a mix of, let's say everybody is healthy. I would go as far as to say Kawhi is probably my number 4. That's a bit of a hot take on its own, isn't it?
No, I think Kawhi Leonard is literally the best 3D player since fuck, I can't even think. But when you think of somebody who's so dominant on both sides of the ball,
yeah,
it's Kawhi Leonard.
And he's an ultra efficient player.
That too.
I mean, when he's able to turn it on, dude, there's nothing that can stop him. That's insane. We talk about Kevin Durant the way we should talk about Kawhi. We just saw Kevin Durant get stifled by Boston. I don't think we'd ever see that with Kawhi. I don't think we would ever see that. If you plug Kawhi into that team in that series, after seeing the way he was defended all of Toronto and even last year or before he got injured, defenses don't bother a guy like Kawhi. It's very Kobe-esque, it's very Mike-esque, and when LeBron is also on, it's very LeBron-esque. There's just nothing a defense can do to stop him.
And even when he's not pumping his shit on the offensive end. Just the fact that he can anchor your defense on every possible level is
He
that
affects
alone.
he
Alone
affects every
is
part of the game. But I mean, we went to take a left field here. Like, I think with this series, how is it looking right now? It looks like it's gonna be a close game. I mean, I'll say 7 games. I think Dallas will win this one at home, and I think they'll push 7. I mean, just because I really like how Dallas has competed all series long.
Hmm.
Like, I think Dallas has been such a good, underrated basketball team, and I'm just enjoying watching Luca right now. And I think the Phoenix Suns are showing a couple holes. They're showing a couple holes. I think they're showing that, this is a team that isn't as good as we thought. On an 82 game playing field, it's different because you have that camaraderie, you have that chemistry, you have that familiarity. So there's times where you can flip a switch. I think they're one of the teams this year that you could just go like that, right? Milwaukee's also that other team that can just go, all right, let's play now. But you can't really necessarily do that in the playoffs. And Chris Paul and Devin Booker are great. Chris Paul, best point guard in the league right now. I think in terms of floor general, and Devin Booker, best shooting guard. But would we really throw them into the list of the top 10 players in the league right now? They're not a top-heavy, talented team. So that's why I'm saying it's like they're really good. They're really good. This team is really well built. They have all the pieces, great coaching. They have one of the best floor generals and leaders ever to play the game. You have the best shooting guard in the league. You have a top 10, top 5 center, DeAndre Ayton. You have all the pieces. But when your best player is not even a guy in the top 10 list, it's a little bit different, right? It's a different tier that you're looking at. So I think that's a hole in itself and a weakness when you play against guys like Luka, because like Luka shows that he's clearly on a different stratosphere. You play against, you go up against the Milwaukee Bucks, and next series they're gonna go up against, obviously Steph Curry. I think the Warriors are gonna win that series, but we can talk about that when we get around to it. But it's like you play against different players in a different stratosphere, and more often than not, that kind of outshines like your top heavy talent, even though you've got all the other pieces. Because, like, quite frankly, if you have one of the best players in the game, players in the NBA, the top talent in the NBA are so good that they could win you a game single-handedly. And we've seen it every single year. We've seen it every single season, every single playoffs. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Giannis dropped 50 in Game 6. Like, dude.
Such a beautiful sight, man.
Dude, like, what else do you want? So, I mean, yeah, I think they'll push it to 7, and then at that point, it's kind of a toss-up because I think these teams are actually quite even, and they match up really well against each other. So, that could be totally wrong, and Phoenix closes it out as we speak. So, it is what it is.
And we'll see what happens. Or I guess when you're listening to this, you already know what happens. So
Yeah.
Reuben either looks like a genius or, he's been riding. I won't say he's not the word biased. He's not a bandwagon because he's been riding the Mavs pretty hard since for this season. I will say.
Say the Mavs would take the second. Did I say the Mavs would take? No, I said the Mavs would take the 3rd seed.
I swear you said the Mavs would make it to the conference finals.
I did say that.
Yeah.
I did say that. So I'll ride with my prediction.
No doubt.
I love Luka though. That's why. So I love Luka. I love Brunson. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody assumed the Suns would just steamroll through everyone, like on some 12-0, and then maybe lose their first game in the finals type shit. But as great as Chris Paul is, he hasn't been as consistent as you'd like him to be. He's had those, as shitty as it is to say, those Chris Paul games where, he's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
That being said, Devin Booker is playing like, I will say, there's a lot of Devin Booker slander going around, especially about like the Luka Doncic special. I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it. All I will say is Devin Booker was on a team that won like 12 games before he came to town. And even before that, this is a guy that dropped 70 points in a loss. So, Devin Booker is undoubtedly, he's definitely cut from that same cloth as Kobe Bryant in aspects. But, are we going to see that happen again? Only time will tell. He's definitely having a great playoff run so far, but yeah, the Suns are just. I think they're a team that's kind of already thinking in that mindset that they're in the finals, and I think that's a double-edged sword in that. It's great to have that confidence that you feel you can beat any team, but at the end of the day, you still got to beat those teams. And I mean, I think it speaks to one, how much polarity there is in the NBA with the fact that an eighth, or technically a 10th seed, was able to push them to 10 or to 6 games. And even now, I think a lot of people kind of wrote off the Mavs just off game one. It's like, oh yeah, they don't have any size to contend with. DeAndre Ayton's going to eat all day. But that again speaks to the parity in the NBA because what we see, Dallas is definitely holding their own. Oh man, Jalen Brunson has just scored the last 6 points for them. They're definitely a team they're definitely in the contention to like beat Phoenix, even though if you said this at the beginning of the run, again, I think everybody was assuming they just like breeze through to the finals. That being said, I keep saying that, these are the kind of things that I think really make championships, really make teams championship teams, is the ability to, face that adversity and come through with it. And so far, Phoenix hasn't been able to do that. Well, only time will tell again. We're saying all this, but who knows? Maybe they're going to blow out Dallas. Definitely not going to, hopefully, but you never know. With that being said, let's flip over from the series that is going on right now to some other series that are going on right now. Let's talk about Whoop That Trick, the Warriors and the Grizzlies. Frankly, I'm not gonna lie. I thought Game 5 was in Memphis's hands, even before Game 4. I think what really did it for the Grizzlies in their demise was terrible shot selection and hero ball. I mean, that is probably one of the stupidest threes I've ever seen someone take with Jaren Jackson Jr. And then Dylan Brooks is chucking that thing like no tomorrow. I respect the confidence, but at the end of the day, if you're like, man, I swear, he shot must have been 3 for 21 or something, even worse than that. Might want to consider trying to affect the games in other ways. But with Game 5, I mean, although it's a small sample size, as I mentioned earlier, 20-5 is a testament how great this team is. Without Ja, I feel the offense becomes a lot more deadly in that it's a lot more spread out. It's not so much, for sure, Ja is going to take it to the rack 9 out of 10 times kind of thing. But now you have Tyus Jones, who has the who has the best assist to turnover ratio in feels like the past half a decade. So that speaks to how amazing his IQ is. Yeah, they have a lot of crazy shot makers. Desmond Bane started to show up. Jaren Jackson Jr. started torching him. And just overall, I think the way I looked at it was that Golden State obviously had the better players, but in Game 5, the Grizzlies had the more cohesive team. I won't say better team because, when you look at all that firepower, Golden State was definitely the better team. But just in terms of how they played, the Grizzlies looked more like a team. And I think the Warriors really looked like a bunch of individuals. With that also in mind, I did say I want Grizzlies to win Game 5 so that we can see Game 6 Clay. That'll be my closing statements for that. Reuben, what you think?
Yeah, I agree. There's not much for me to add here. It's the cohesion, right? Like we mentioned it earlier. They're 20-5 without John Moran. That's an insane record, and a lot of it's because of the fact that Jaw doesn't need when Jaw has the ball in his hands, that takes away from the ability to move the ball, the ability for the shots to find different hands, for them to play in rhythm. Oftentimes when John Moran has the ball, it's always looking downhill like you mentioned, and then kicking out to guys and being ready to spot up and shoot. When he's not in there, different guys are taking care of the basketball. You've seen times where Dylan Brooks is initiating the offense, where he's coming downhill, he's passing it out, then he's relocating. Same thing for all these different guys: Tyus Jones, DeAnthony Melton, Desmond Bane. Jaren Jackson went off last night. I mean, it is what it is. The ball, more often than not, the ball will move around. It won't stick. and guys can get in rhythm, because when they've got the orange in their rock, they can really feel out the game. They can really be a part of the game. They can really understand the flow of the game, at least on the offensive end. And what that does is, more often than not, people say it professionally, like, oh, this shouldn't affect how you play defensively. It's human nature for you, when you see a couple shots go in, you get back on defense, you try a little bit harder because you can't wait to get right back on the other side of the floor. And that's just a natural progression. And so I think Taylor Jenkins has also understood that with this young team, and he kind of just lets his young team roll with the punches, and I feel like he's done a really good job of not getting in the way of their confidence. Because more often than not, coaches like to come in and they like to be like, hoorah, we're gonna do this my way. When he's really bought into kind of what what the personality of this team is. So, and you saw that pretty much all in Game 5. Like that was an impressive showing. They really went home and they were like, yeah, we're not going home. We're not going to stay here. We want to go to Golden State. So, yeah, it was a great game to watch. But yeah, I think Golden State closes it out in 6 because we've always seen how good Golden State is with their backs against the wall. People are expecting them to be like, oh, they lost by 50. What's going to happen now? And Memphis is so much better without Ja. Listen, you have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, who have won multiple championships and have seen all different things before. This is nothing. So, yeah, buckle your seat in, I think, or buckle up, in your seats, and get ready to watch a masterclass, because I think we're gonna get one from Golden State.
They think they're 50-piece them back?
I don't know if it's 50-piece and back, but I think we're just gonna see a really good performance all around from their players.
No
and
doubt.
if I'm wrong, I'm happy about it, only because we get to see Game 7 of the series, because this series has been dope too.
This has been a crazy good series. But I think one person we gotta show some love is Steven Adams, man.
Yeah,
He's gone from not being in the rotation at all with the last series to now. As Chuck said, they found what they needed to do. I think they haven't been really utilizing their size. What's the word? Holy crap! I can't even. They haven't been using their size advantage as much as they should be, and we saw with this Game 5. I think they were able to really do that. I think Steven Adams alone had 6 or 7 offensive rebounds, a crazy good number like that. And when you have that, when you're able to create those second chances, when you're able to create multiple possessions off of the one thing, that's the good shit right there.
Well, what did I say? What did I say last episode?
Oh, what was it again?
Steven Adams needs to be in the rotation.
True. Dude.
I literally said it last episode. I just remembered it now. It's because, yeah, like you said, you literally hit it on the nail. Size advantage. It's such an important thing. No one on Golden State can guard Jaren Jackson or Steven Adams, or at least have the bodies to, as Chuck said, bang down low. You know what I mean? They don't have that.
Yeah, they can't be banging each other with the size they got.
Even their bodies.
When they banging you.
Oh, banging you. When they feel your body, then Shaq's like. Dude, that was one of the funniest segments of all.
I love Charles. Oh, okay. Okay, so with that series potentially ending on Friday, let's talk about another series that could potentially end on Friday. It's the Bucks and the Celtics. Reuben, I'll let you sound off first on this, my brother.
I kind of want to just give you the floor, but this is all I have to say. Bucks and 6.
Hey,
Bucks
hey.
and 6.
You can't see it. What the fuck I'm talking about? I got that shit tattooed when they won. It says Bucks and 6 always. That's for the culture. That's for Brandon Jennings, baby.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That.
yeah, man.
It's
Bucks
fire.
and 6, 100%. I guess. What do I have to say about Game 5 though? There's some people want to shout out. Pat Connaughton, game-winning free throws at home. He's a Massachusetts boy. Can't get any sweeter than that. Bobby Portis, the game-winning bucket. He's a guy, I think he was 3 for 10 on the night, but that don't fucking matter. The fact that he got that one bucket to really put them over the hump, that's what I'm talking about. And not only that, I think he had 7 offensive rebounds, and he that alone outdueled the Celtics on the offensive rebounding board, which I think they only had 5. And Drew Holiday, man.
Just awesome.
Those two possessions alone should have been reason for Marcus Smart to give that crystal ball, which is, I think, disgusting as an award. You know, bring back that shit next year. I think it was just for the NBA 75 thing. But that being said, give that shit to Drew Holiday, man, because he absolutely clamped the man. I mean, what I got here, the game-winning clamps, the unwavering confidence. There were a lot of possessions where I thought, why the fuck is Drew shooting that shot? I'm thankful in a way because, the man has unwavering confidence. He really hit that three to really get us inch us closer. I think I saw it was like teams were and a crazy number when they're down by 6 with 2 minutes, and the Bucks just added 1 to the victory column for them. And shoot, I think Drew Holiday has gotten a lot of flack in this series for his efficiency, but I will say I don't think it's because he's shooting poorly. Well, I guess that kind of defeats the purpose, but what I'm trying to say is when you lose a guy like Chris Middleton who's taking in excess of 12 to 20 shots a game, that's got to come from somewhere. As great as Giannis is, he can't take all those 20 shots, obviously. He can't take all those back shots. That's why you got to offload some of them to Drewski. And obviously with that and how competitive and how much he exerts himself on the defensive end, obviously a lot of those shots are taken with less energy. At least that's me prefacing on that. So I think that's been a real reason why, Drew Holiday's been suffering a little bit in that end, but who cares? Just get the W. I mean, when I looked it up earlier, Drew shoots normally around 14 shots, or no, around 16. His 16 shots per game is his average. And prior to or after Chris Middleton went down, there was only one time where he shot below his average, and every other game was 20 plus shot attempts. So you see, he's really trying to not necessarily force the offense, but just giving Milwaukee what they really need, and that it's another guy that can create his shot because, we've talked about this a lot. Milwaukee has a lot of shot makers, but outside of Chris Middleton and Drew, they don't really have that many shot creators. As great as Giannis is, when he's feeling himself and he's really shooting that mid-range pull-up, that's great, but that's still not something I think I'd really say is his primary weapon, obviously. But shoot, when we look at this, heading into the fourth quarter, the lead swelled to 93 to 79. They were down by double digits with 8 minutes left. But in the final 2 minutes, an 11-2 run. I mean, 6 for 6 from the 3 in the fourth. And the way they were playing, man, had me a little worried, I can't lie. Completely opposite of what the Grizzlies were able to do. I think there were a lot of one-and-done possessions, bad shot selection, etc. However, I always had to remind myself, the Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Celtics do not. I mean, Giannis obviously put the team on his back, and he showed a will to win that I think was really unmatched. I mean, I can't wait to see the, what is it? I don't know if studio photo is the right version, but, the courtside photos with the professional cameras, when Giannis has the bloody eye, that's going to be a cold-ass photo. I'm so excited to see that. And, man, if you would have told me that Giannis Antetokounmpo would have hit a clutch 3 to really, not say put him over the hump, but, man, when I saw, bro, I'm not going to lie. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that shit's going in, yo. Man, that was...
Onions, bro.
Man.
Onions.
That's even... Remember that bullshit was look, my man, I was seeing 3 nets and I shot at the middle one. I'm not gonna lie, I think that's a little bull. But with Giannis, with the cut over his eye, and obviously you saw there was a little swelling, I would believe that more than I was seeing multiple rims in the LeBron James story. But, man.
Yeah, that was straight cap.
That one was 100% cap. But when it comes to this game, I think it's just, another jewel to add to Giannis's gauntlet. I think it's just another game that really showcases why he's in contention, and if not already, the greatest European to ever play basketball. I mean, it was by far his most efficient game in the series. I think it was his first one where he shot over 59%. He was basically at 60%. I'll say he shot 60%. The other games, like low 40s to even below 40. And shoot, man, it was just such a beautiful game, man. I was able to make it. I was only really able to watch the fourth quarter, but man, that was all I needed to watch. It was. I haven't seen a comeback that amazing since, in terms of the Bucks season this year, that one game we had against the Sixers where I think they were down 10 with about 4 minutes and they came back. And shoot, this was. I think I also saw like in the pregame earlier for the Heat and the Sixers, a lot of it was about did the Bucks fall or did the Celtics fall or did the Bucks triumph or like that kind of thing. Where it's like, is the victory really more reliant on the fact that the Celtics were a bit doo-doo down the stretch, or was it because the Bucks were so like offensively dominant? And I think one, that's stupid because I think it's a mixture of both. Yeah. When you look at the Celtics, I think they really got away from themselves a bit towards the end. I'm not gonna lie, when Al Horford had that putback dunk, had me sweating a little bit. Can't even lie. That was nasty. But shoot, I think also what happened to them is that as great as Jason Tatum is, I think it's a double-edged sword in that when you have plays that are specifically designed for him and everybody's kind of like, oh, fuck, what do we do? He's clamped or whatever. That's how you get that Marcus Smart thing. I think he even said in the post game, like, that play was supposed to be for JT. And obviously nobody really knew what to do. And I will say, as what's the word? As colorful a person as Marcus Smart is with his personality and his hair, there is one thing you can't take away from him is that I don't think he's ever too big for any moment. Obviously, if he makes that shot or gets fouled, we're looking at this very differently. But nobody was really like, everybody was just looked very discombobulated in that last play before Drew got the block. But you saw that Marcus Smart, he was like, fuck it, I'm going to put the team on my back almost. Didn't work out, but again, just the fact that he was not afraid of that and he was willing to, put the team on his back and ready to take him home. I respect that. Yeah. And man, this has just been such an amazing series. It's crazy,
It's been fun seeing like Jason Tatum and the Celtics defense, like, obviously in some ways kind of get stifled because, when you have Giannis on the floor, he can just make things happen regardless of what he sees on the defensive end. He's to that such of a unique talent. But I, as much as I say Milwaukee in 6, like, I do believe that Boston is going to make this a really hard game to win.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be it's going to be another razor close game in game 6, I think. No doubt.
Yeah. 100%.
And man, I just gotta give some love to Al Horford, man.
Killer, man. He's had an awesome season.
No doubt.
Like, there's nothing bad you can say about him. He's the ultimate veteran. Like, there's been a few games this year where, like, I mean, I can think about Thad Young with Toronto. Who else am I thinking about? There's a number of. I feel like we've had some really good veteran moments this year, and that I think is really important to shine a light on how important it is for a team to have someone who's battle tested, for years.
Al Horford doesn't get his respect, man. I think he's like a 5-time All-Star.
He's been a great player.
100%. Had 30 the other night. Holy shit, man! If Al Horford's dropping 30, you're not winning that game.
Yeah. 100%. They got something special out of him.
No doubt.
For sure.
I do hope he does come back next year, regardless of what happens, because you definitely showed he's got a lot left in the tank. I think, man, I just think the Celtics have done a really, really solid job defensively. I can't remember the last time Giannis had like such poor shooting performance. Probably, honestly, I don't think it's been that bad since like the Toronto series, where you really saw Giannis get like, not necessarily clamped, but okay, no, the Raptors definitely clamped him. I'm not going to deny that. But no, the Celtics have done such a, they've game planned very well, I will say. And I think it's just, there's a lot of times where the Celtics are on like like 10, everything's flowing well, but when you don't have that championship medal, when you're not battle tested to the level that the Milwaukee Bucks are, you know, a lapse here means going down by like 5-10 points kind of thing. So I think even if they do lose game 6, you know, it's Bucks in 7 then, baby. Regardless though, I mean, this is the second time that the Bucks are in like the best series in the playoffs. In my opinion, I think unless I'm very firm in that I think this will be the best series of the playoffs, just like how the Bucks and the Nets were last year.
It's a great series. I am very confident in my 6 prediction. But
you know, I am too.
Yeah, there's a team though that can really push this series. It'd be Boston, just with their weapons. But we'll see how it progresses, man. I'm really excited. I mean, Dallas is up 15 on the Suns with, well, it's basically second half now. It's about to start end of the first half.
Yeah, game 7 coming soon. Knock on wood.
Well, yeah, they're up 15. It looks like they're going to take this one, so I think we're going to get game 7. I mean, unless they turn it around, then the next episode, like, it comes... I mean, this episode comes out tomorrow. It's like, yo, you guys are so stupid, man.
Hey.
Like,
I hate the fact that, you know, NBA media, whether it be Twitter or just kind of like, you know, TV shows or whatever, I hate that you get clowned on for being wrong. Because, I mean... We're out here making takes. That's the whole fucking point. If you hit on everything, that's fucking boring. That's why I say Rudy Gobert is the most overrated defender. Who knows? Next year he might win fucking DPOY again.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I want to give a huge shout out, even though he doesn't listen or know. Like, we don't have the audience that he does, but like, JJ Redick has really done a good job of transforming NBA media and showing that you don't need to be gimmicky anymore. Like, you don't need to be gimmicky. People want pure basketball conversation, like honest takes, and if you have a hot take and a cold take and you can back it up with good reasoning and not some BS like
Bob Cozy's the greatest point guard of the first ball.
Like, guys, JJ Redick literally said the dude was playing with firemen. Like, what else do you want? Like, Jesus Christ, man. So, yeah, it is what it is. But, you know, over here we don't do BS like that over here. So
yeah. We'll say what we want, we'll back it up, and then we go from there. But exactly. I would never in a million years say any player that played in the 50s could dog anybody nowadays. Because, you know...
That boy was low-key racist, too, man. The guy was
no doubt!
He was like, Draymond, shut up, and what is it? Shut up and play.
Yo, yeah, that was... that was a little shaky.
And then he started bringing up, well, I love all the black players. I'm like, guy, you
gotta do that. That's
Yeah, and so, anyways, I hope they never have that guy on the show again. And if he does, I hope he gets clowned on again by JJ Redick.
Even Stephen A. Smith's been schooled a few times, which I love.
Yeah, I love, because Stephen A. Smith is also an idiot. So, yeah, I don't enjoy him. Oh God, for game 1. It was game 1 between Minnesota and Memphis, and the audio went out in ESPN, the halftime.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible. Oh, my gosh.
Jalen Rose and Stephen A. Smith giving play-by-play. I was like, dude, I would rather shoot my ears out. Like, I don't know, man. I would just rather lose my eardrums in this moment. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, though. I didn't realize it was like that. I didn't realize it was like shaky or faulty audio until they even came on. I just thought like, oh, man, I just got a bad stream or whatever. But
I don't know what they were doing. It sounded like they were talking through a highlight, and it was like, oh God, it was awful. Never again.
No doubt. But, all right. That has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We will see y'all again, hopefully on Tuesday. Fingers crossed Christian is back, and hopefully we'll be able to run some BTS. The real BTS, Blacktop Showdown. But, Reuben, you got anything to close us off with, brother?
I want to say thank y'all. Enjoy the playoffs like we have been. And Scotty Barnes will win MVP next year.
Oh, that's a take for another day. With that.
Yeah.
Hey, craziest shit has happened.
Oh,
But with
no.
that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.
Peace.